Hello, this video will be about the celestial Asgard, the home of the benevolent gods, its earthly reflection and its role in the interesting unfolding saga of Slavic history, which will turn out very soon to be not at all only Slavic, because it is the descendants of the gods of Asgard who actually populated the entire earth. Even if you live in the United States, your ancestors landed first on earth on Asgard, and it will be at that place, again according to some prophecies, where the very end episode of the dramatic earthly changes will unfold. It will also contain a deeper level of understanding of the real reasons of the Ukraine war, which according to some sources is not over yet at all. Layers which are deeper even than the invested interests of the oil companies of Chevron, etc. So first of all, let's understand what is the site of Asgard all about, because that will make it clear why it is so important. It is actually the earthly reflection of the core of the universe, where all the primeval patterns of creation originate. They are something what we would probably describe as three magical suns, which all have two, male and female, so to say, in our terms, parts in them. So it's like this six primeval pattern giving beginnings, which are eternally put into motion by the creative power of all that is, the Supreme Lord. And they create newer and newer sacred patterns which never repeat each other. That is how, in practical terms, God manages his creation. And these patterns are quite subtle for us to understand. Like the best example is as these tonoscopes. They are big drums with tiny particles on them, and when they are made to vibrate by various frequencies, they display the corresponding sacred patterns of these frequencies, and especially the higher ones, they are quite beautiful. And that is why, as explained in the video about the artificial intelligence, that they removed the two highest frequencies from our realm when they were creating this demonic grid. Isolation chamber below and above Earth to isolate humanity and turn us into demons. Besides removing 2 days of the week, access to two of the highest chakras human species usually uses, they removed the two highest musical notes and made it look historically as they were even never ever there. Here is a segment containing the two higher notes which they removed.
Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, si, pi. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, si, pi.
So obviously, for the dark forces to take over control of the area of where the earthly manifestation of Asgard was and still is on some level, is of course extremely important for them, because that is where the patterns of everything which happens and exists on Earth originate. And the example with the tonoscope is a very isolated one. In reality, this is seriously magical stuff because, like, for example, in the Vedas, we have a bit more information how these primeval patterns are translated in what we call life and destiny. There is the top way to chant mantras, and mantras are connected with these primeval sounds, is in one's mind. So the sound doesn't necessarily to be something which we hear. In addition, there are also visual representations of these primeval patterns. For example, all the deities have their yantras. This is Shri Yantra, the main Hindu Vedic yantra, which helps to connect to the patterns of the benevolent gods. Because the lords of the darkness, they have their own patterns as well. Usually they resemble spare parts for insects. Because it is usually when they incarnate, they prefer the bodies of insects, because this type of species, they're ruthless, they don't have compassion. So it suits the type of mentality that this type of entities have, and they propagate their yantras, their patterns in our world in the forms of machines, buildings, etc. Very often such modern creations repeat the patterns of the bodies of spiders or ants, because these are the preferred forms of the lords of the darkness. So back to Asgard. The geographical point of its reflection on Earth is north of the river Don. This is that very same area around the river Volga. That's how I have been calling it in the Survivors series, where I showed numerous evidence that this was where the race first landed on Earth. The rivers Don and Volga are actually connected by a channel 20-something miles long. This is the very same area, and I'm mentioning Don because north of Don is the location mentioned in the Nordic sagas, which deliver that very same Vedic knowledge. And the very name Asgard means the enclosure or guarded area of the Aces. Ace is an old word which is still being used, means a leader, a prominent, very skilled person. So initially when the human race came, they were called the Aces, and their land was called Asia, land of the Aces. As you can see, Europe is not naturally separated from Asia. It's actually one single continent, and that's how it was originally. But when the Lord of the Hellish Worlds started camping initially on Earth, that was in Western Europe. From there it spread to America and then engulfed the entire Earth. So at the time he started taking over, he didn't want to have the name of the Aces mentioned on his own postal address. And that's why he said now this continent will be considered two, and changed the name of his own part. And the boundary of the Nordic ring of Asgard was that what now we call the Great Wall of China, which according to Paramonov was all across the entire world actually. And Alexander Paramonov will be the source of most the information in this video. If you are not familiar with who he is, you can check out the links in the description. The famous adventurer and discoverer Thor Heyerdahl had also expedition looking for the reflection of Asgard north of River Don. So the story about the Ukraine war, that it was because of the oil companies who wanted to take over the region, that is a very superficial layer of the entire truth, because that was only, the oil was only the food for the hyenas who were hired but hired to do what and defend whose interests actually. As you can see, the place where the recent Ukraine Russia war took place is exactly in the region of Asgard. And the plan, the clever parasitic plan, was to poison the underground waters of the entire this region of Siberia. Now, first to explain the situation with the underwater supply of the planet. I already did that in the video about Utrok Vyacheslav, who also spoke about this very same system, and decades ago he explained and described it the same way. Now Paramonov describes it that most of the Earth's water is actually underground, where there is a system, and these giant animals actually clean it. That is the central water supply of the Earth as designed by God. And that is why you will find listed as mysteries lots of stories and proofs from all around the world about bottomless water channels and fish and other objects surfacing on the other side of the world carried by waters. And those who try to solve these mysteries say as if all the rivers and oceans are connected somewhere under the earth. Yes, actually they are connected. At places with all the legends of bottomless lakes, for example, in modern times, divers actually dived and found out that is true. They could never, it was really bottomless. These are these entries to this vast underground system which cleans all the waters and provides clear waters for the divine race. So the higher parasitic levels, they know about this system, and they know that in the region of Asgard there is this place where they can access, and by drilling an actual hole, in one single shot they can poison the pool of this entire region of Siberia and kill the people. Their dreams will come true. So how to get to the region and drill a hole? And they decided to stage this war, and for start they infected entire villages with special military viruses that they have made in their laboratories. They use them when they recruit actual humans because they have robots, clones, but they also use actual zombified humans in their armies, their earthly armies. And the way they prepare their people is infect them with these special viruses, which they keep the body strong, but one loses the sense of pity and mercy. So initially they infected a few villages with this virus, and then the conflict started taking place, and they arrived very well stacked with toxins, enough to poison the entire vast, huge pool of underwater supply below Siberia. So on his channel, The Treasury of the Creator, Alexander Paramonov posted a story narrated by a local person in terms of how did actually the things go in terms of the Ukraine war. Although this plan with the poisoning was clever, it was simply not meant to happen. And that is why people were sent to the locals, and they actually taught them how to do a proper ritual honoring their ancestor and asking them for direct and urgent help. Because these rituals work. I even remember a completely different occasion of some person who doesn't even believe in these things. He was laughing me and telling, oh, in these wild villages, you know, they still do these rites for rain when it is dry. The farmers, they still remember in some very isolated areas in Bulgaria, they remember the old rituals. And this person was laughing at them, and yet he was telling me himself, because he's from those villages originally, then now he lives in the city. And he says, and the funny thing is, every time they do it, it actually rains. So they actually gathered many people, because when you need lots of power, you need lots of descendants of these gods. It's like this. Actually, the final ceremony in the Avatar is a very good preparation for the people of the earth of how their future would be. When you need a real protection dome against evil forces, you need all the people to draw with their energy, the attention of their forefathers. And it worked in Ukraine as well. And at the very beginning, when the war was just starting, they arrived at the spot for drilling with all their poisons, not counting for any resistance at that point, because it was the full conflict was just beginning. But what happened is this division of soldiers who were supposed to do all that, when they arrived, they had all of them panic attacked, and they left actually their tanks and poisons, and they run. Many of them with wet and dirty underwear because of the extreme fear. There was no visible reason for any fear or panic whatsoever, and yet all of them experienced a terrible panic attack. After this incident, actually, the American administration, I underline administration, I don't want to just fuel more of this artificially created paradigm that the American people are against the Russian people. It's only the administration. So the administration accused the Russian administration for using illegally psychic weapons which are not allowed according to international agreements. Now, what is the real meaning of this statement? As far as international law or any law, of course, the American government doesn't care about any of that. They break it like on a daily basis. They actually accused the Russian military for using illegal weapons because they thought that this is a psychic weapon, and since the American and the Russian military, they are not two separate parties. They have the same commanding office. So they were wondering over there at the top, is this weapon used by the Russians? We didn't give such orders. All these orders are given from New York, actually, where the military parasitic headquarters are. In London is the center for puppet shows of the politicians. They specialize in puppets. So all these puppets are placed as, for example, as presidents, and they say to their nations, you see that other country, they hate us, they are making these and these weapons to come and kill us. And then the puppet from the other side organizes a military parade and replies to the threats with even more stupid threats. And all this is broadcasted on TV, and it's very popular. People buy it, and after that, when they believe, they actually fund their own genocide, which is, of course, advertised as crusade against weapons of mass destruction or something of that sort. So, as covered in the previous videos, the status of the Russian Federation is not that of a country. It is simply a trade firm registered initially in London. Now, when the things started coming up to the surface, everybody in the London registry says that they have never heard about it, and New York says also we've never heard about this company. So as of today, the legal status of the Russian Federation is a trade company which nobody knows where it has been registered. The legal registration and papers of the official central bank of that Russian Federation is even more interesting. It came into existence, I believe, 3 years before even the Russian Federation appeared out of nowhere. They told us that the people were protesting, and then the country turned into so-called democracy in a single moment spontaneously, which is, of course, a total lie, because the Russian Federation was planned before that, and there are no legal papers, even forged, even fraudulent that there was any connection between the USSR and the Russian Federation, while they lied to the people that the USSR government handed over the authority to the Russian Federation. This is not the case. They simply murdered everybody in Kremlin who refused to look at the new authority, which came one day and simply took over by force. And this was well thought project because its bank was registered 3 years before that, before on the name of the Russian Federation, which shouldn't have been existent even at that time. And that is according to their own official founding papers, documents. Now we have to understand how, again, with information from Alexander Paramonov, this Russian Federation, which somehow rather fulfills the functions of a government body, how it runs its internal financial matters. There is a finance ministry, but in reality this is a translation ministry, because since there is no real Russian central bank, everything is in New York, all these bank accounts of all the people, the members, the customers, to use the right word, of the Russian Federation, the trade firm Russian Federation, they have actually accounts in New York, and when they pay their water, electricity, social, all kinds of fees and things, the only function of this Russian puppet ministry is to translate everything and generate false Russian-looking bank accounts, which will cover up the real New York accounts, for the purpose of having some sort of accountability without showing to the actual people, the Russian population, their real account number in New York. And this is not just a conspiracy theory or some idea, but actually people, because of some bank mistakes or whatever, one thing led to another, and they found out that they actually have proper accounts in Western banks, and because they are immigrants who live abroad, they actually went with these account numbers to those banks and they found out it's true. What else extremely interesting they found out is that in their foreign bank accounts, when they go to the foreign bank, because it's a duty of every bank to give statement to their customers. So they went abroad, some of them, not all Russians, but those who went, it really turned out to be true, found out that thousands have been going through their bank accounts, although they remained unaware of it and lived usually in poverty. The thing is that all this comes down to the Bretton Woods times. At that time, large amounts of gold, as well from Russia, were set down really with good intention initially, before the United Nations and all this entire financial system was corrupted. This funds and gold was allotted to eradicate poverty, and everybody would be guaranteed, especially the children and the elderly, to receive generous monthly support according to their age, and they are receiving it till date. However, only about some, whatever, 4, 5, 6% actually it reaches the real Russian people, because the rest, the big chunk, is taken. That's why they have two accounts, American and Russian, so that only 5% reaches the Russian account, and the rest is channeled directly through this Russian Federation to fund this entire genocide in Russia and all over the world, because these private gangs of mercenaries, which are fed with this money, they know no boundaries. They kill wherever they are sent without any borders. Besides the mercenaries, of course, a large portion of this money goes to enrich illegally those who have sold their souls in Russia locally, and maintain this entire farce, this entire genocide scheme. And whatever 5-6%, whatever is really allotted to caring for the customers of the Russian Federation, some of it is really handed out in the form of pensions and help for new families, but a lot of goes to the funds of various government programs, which every year, amazingly enough, don't even spend it, and it remains simply staying in their account without any use, while on the TV they convince the people that we don't have any funds for anything. And this genocide scheme is taking upon really unimaginable, unhuman proportions with the new law for basically depriving all pensioners of pension almost completely, some of them completely. And this is genocide really, because there are people who actually rely on their pensions for food, and once that is cut off, what are they gonna do? And it is not by chance that the USSR suddenly disappeared sometime before the year 1995, because that year, 95, was in the year according to which the financial agreements related to the Bretton Woods Agreement was when the actual funds should have been returned to the people, because the situation as of now is there are funds there and gold, it is in the banks. And yes, some people are getting benefits in the West, they get them more directly, as we saw in the case with Russia. It is mostly used to fund, and most likely the very same is true with some or all the ex communist countries. The money don't even reach the people. So according to the older agreements, the people would be receiving such benefits for some years until the peace and stability in the society is restored, because the agreement was made right after the war. There was still chaos. So they thought that was at the times when this was really meant and done for the So the idea was initially people would be receiving benefits, and eventually after a few years, when everything stabilizes, they will get the actual wealth and actually even the gold, which is the basis of the financial system, because by international law the riches of the land belong to the people and not to central banks or countries. So the initial plan was good, but afterwards everything was taken over by the dark forces, and they wanted to avoid, of course, this moment of returning the riches to the people. And since the USSR at that moment was firmly on the way of getting its riches back and giving it to the people, they had to remove the entire country before it was too late, before it ruins their parasitic schemes. Now, many people would wonder how come USSR would do such a thing when it was initiated by the socialist and communist system was initiated by the dark forces as well. Actually, all these systems with isms, like democracy, all these systems were initiated by the dark forces to hurt the people. Initially, the people were free; they were not bound by any systems. They were on the top, not the system controlling them. They were social systems, but they were subservient to the will of the people. It was the other way around. And as far as these Nordic Siberian regions, the systems, this is not even the first system the dark forces installed over there. We saw that centuries ago they even changed the king. After 2 years, some other king came that did not look like him, did not even speak Russian, and was actually a Mason from Holland or whatever. So I gave examples in the Survivors series, and Paramonov explained how this happened in communist times. Initially, the entire communistic scheme was planned and installed by the parasitic forces, but the thing is that they always do it gradually, so they did not put some sort of obviously reptilian president at that time. They always made it through local people and local governments who would actually follow their interests. So, what happened again and again in that region and also in the other regions, if you think deeply, you will most likely find examples from your own region, is that when they put the real humans, they end up doing something humane, at least to some extent in the end, because as long as it is human, it will have some sort of sense in its head, some sort of mercy. While now, when you have these wild robots, they don't have any mercy. That's why we see these absolute perversions and murder and nonsense. It's getting worse and worse because of a lot of the rulers are not at all human anymore. So Permonov explained that their communism slash socialism experiment was not very successful from their point of view of the dark forces because the government which they initially put betrayed them much more than they expected. They started doing much more for the people than they should have been doing it. The same problem which they had to some extent in the past with the kings that they have been placing. They were following their orders in general, but also doing things for the people more and more than their dark bosses wished. And there were dark groups even in socialist time. For example, now many people think that in the times of depression, people were dying from hunger, and there was this crisis because of the socialist rule. But actually, now that the real truth is showing, they found even the trains. This was an operation done by the dark groups in the socialist time who were undermining what people were trying to build as a normal life within this socialist experiment. So they loaded the food stuff that they could collect under various pretexts and programs. They loaded it on trains and made this dead-end rails, loaded unbelievable amounts of food on trains and dumped it over there to rot in the woods. Amongst the compartments of food, there were many trains filled with money, because in the previous century, printed money was the main means of exchange. This was a way to destabilize the economy by making printed money as objects difficult to get. So I don't mean that socialism was something great or that we should get back to it. I'm just explaining how things were. And why now, in those very same regions, in the times of alleged democracy, the life of the people is way worse and way insecure due to lots of crimes. And sadly, the living standards of the common people are much lower now. Actually, when we take in account the impact of the recent lockdown in Russia and the impact of the new inhumane pension law changes, Russia is heading towards poor African standards of living in the very near future if things don't change. So some people are wondering, because I explained in the previous videos that Paramonov brought back legally USSR, and he is gonna build the future system on its basis, on its ashes. It's not a return of the communism, but it will start where it ended. The reason for that is that despite all its imperfections, the USSR was at least a country where constitution was respected, because now even if you have some constitutional right in Russia and if you go to some uh, government authority, they will laugh at you that you are seeking your constitutional rights. So at least in those times there was some honorable law. Crime rates were very low. In some areas there was no crime at all. And the bottom line is that people could live normal lives. Everybody could have a house, a car, enjoy nature, enjoy love. There was emphasis on moralities and creativity. Arts were essential for life in that time. Well, now that the company of the Russian Federation has taken over, like you see in this news, now you see it also in Washington, unmarked mercenaries are telling the people what to do. This is open tyranny, and it is much worse in Russia. It is like these unmarked officials. They now dictate, they make their own laws. So this is a much worse stepping stone than the USSR. But the capitalism was a different type of system also set up by the dark forces. Its good side was that people were given much more freedom in personal enterprise. And while they were enjoying that freedom because it was nourishing their creativity, lots of nice things were made. Within that paradigm, the dark forces were undermining the very essence of being human from a different side, because by definition, in the capitalist environment, money is the most important. That is even the official definition of the term. So many people fell into this trap, and doing atrocities for money became commonplace. That is why, according to Paramonov, it is absolutely necessary, most important, to get out of this hamster wheel of whose promises to believe and whom to make a president. And what if he gets corrupted? And like many others, this is an endless vicious circle, and it is vicious because it is built on the wrong presumption that having a central authority which has the power to tell the people what to do in their own lives, that is a mistaken idea by itself. Yes, there will be social structures after the New Age starts as well, but this will be like, for example, organizing transport or collecting the garbage or doing all the work of cleaning the nature, the environment, organizing this type of social services and not telling the people what to do. Also understanding that all poverty, starvation is artificially created. And that's why, as a task number one, the money will be returned to the people. It will amount to a couple of kilos gold per person, which will be enough for everybody to have a decent home and basics, and then start creating and living in a loving way. Because this entire project called Earth was obviously not created for people to struggle for food or work like donkeys every day, day and night. God has arranged for a clean water supply for everybody. Food is growing in abundance. When technology is employed, then there is almost no need to work. All the scarcities from which currently the humanity suffers are a result of deliberate mismanagement and centrally organized all kinds of crises and pollution. And since the time of transition to a normal state on Earth will be happening very soon in the upcoming years, the process, the actual way to happen, it will be as explained by Seth, the channeled material by Jane Roberts. She wrote down, as the level of consciousness will be changing, gradually these new social structures will appear, structures which will carry out the changes in most practical terms. Even Edgar Cayce specifically said that the changes will start like a wave from Russia, like a wave, But he also specified, but not from the government of Russia, but from the ordinary people. According to Paramonov, this so-called government of Russia, the firm Russian Federation, they're ruling under the name of Putin. There was actually such a person. He says that the original person who had such name is actually dead. They killed him and now rule under his name. That I read actually in an article written by people who apparently heard these things from Paramonov, but it seems to be a genuine article. It says like, because only a dead person can rule walking dead people. We are so much disconnected from reality. The real world, we perceive it as some sort of unreal dreams. That is caused by two main reasons. This artificial intelligence grid, which I spoke about in the previous videos, and also the additional distortion of our consciousness caused by watching TV and believing all the things from the mass media. That is extremely powerful distortion. There will be no freedom until both these factors are completely removed. And the new world will be really beautiful without tyranny, without poverty. Plant and animal species of amazing beauty will be returning. People will be mostly interested in creating unbelievable masterpieces in dimension which we also can't imagine now. And as you have figured out yourself probably, for that type of life you need really pure and evolved souls. And that's why a large chunk, a large portion of the current Earth population will depart before that starts. Because they have their own reality, understanding of what good is. For them, that is reality. They find excuse for all the hatred, including bitter self-hatred, which they keep in their heart. Also, lots of people are actively involved in this entire machine of genocide that is going on. They will also not be able to pass this transition point, but from their point of view, they will not see it as, oh, I just don't have a strength to make it to the good side. I cling to the dark things. No, they will not understand it like this. They will be convinced in themselves that they are going the right way. Some of them may be convinced that they are very spiritual. For example, I know people who say, oh yeah, this genocide program is going on, but we have to love everything. We're spiritual, no? Actually, no, not according to the law of God. He will make such people try their own bitter medicine. Slava Sivrekova, a less known but very accurate prophet from Bulgaria, she spoke decades ago, still in communist times, at times when things were so dense in communism, the grip was so strong. If you would talk to people that this regime will come down very soon, it would be like really unimaginable. In the same way, now that I tell you how the new age will be, many people will find it like a fantasy, like an unimaginable. In the same way, when Slava Sivrukova spoke some, I don't know, how many decades ago, in Bulgaria during communist times, he said this communist regime will fall. Bulgaria will be part of the EU. She was giving local prophecies for Bulgaria. She called it Europa. She said there will be no boundaries. All Europe will be like one country, and Bulgaria will be part of it. And in those faraway times, she said, and now I'm telling you a special warning, in these last times, the government tyranny will know no boundary, and many people will start stealing from the people, from the citizens, using the government as an excuse, which is exactly what is going on right now in Bulgaria. And she warned, she said, many Bulgarians will be locally involved in this giant machine of plundering and openly stealing. But she says, don't go that way, because justice will come. About the exact timing I will speak in the next video, which will be exactly about different prophecies in terms of timing of all these events. So it is coming within this decade, and she specifically specified these people will be in prison for many, many years under very bad conditions. And what Paramonov now he says the time is coming very soon. He said that all the members in this international network for plundering and genocide, everything is recorded to the smallest detail, and everybody will be judged. Those who survive until the final judgment, their sentence, their tribunal will be public. The people whom they plundered, they will decide their sentence. But he hinted that it will be like a life sentence in Guantanamo conditions. Some will try to hide in bunkers underground, and they will end up eating themselves, each other. And practically at this stage, what is going on? This organization, UN registered with the status of a local government of USSR by Paramonov, they are sending official letters to all these individuals and criminal organizations of the Russian Federation, etc., and all its institutions. They are sending them these official letters. They require signature of the receiver to make sure that everybody has been properly notified. So in these letters, they inform the respective organization or individual that your crimes, which fall in the category of international terrorism and include plunder, genocide, and participation in the international network of kidnapping people and sacrificing and eating them, all that is properly recorded, and you will be made accountable for it very soon. And now is the time of the last chance for getting a lesser punishment by correcting your wrongdoings and actively begin to create a beautiful, clean earth environment and respecting people instead of all this sick and ultimately even self-destructive genocide scheme for the entire human race and even the animal and plant kingdoms. And now are the times of the last choice also for everybody individually. Not only the participants of this hideous genocide and plunder network are at great risk, but also other groups of people which may not be aware even of it, like people who drink regularly alcohol, people who run businesses and immorally make themselves rich, even if they can get around the current law. This doesn't mean that they comply to the universal ethics as God perceives it. Sex perverts are another group at great risk because usually that is a sign that the given soul has serious problems to work on. And also people who are full of anger and frustration. This type of people blame it all on their unlucky lives, not understanding that each and every disaster which happens to them actually originates from something from their own personality. So those who choose the path of light, unless they are already completely pure, they will be facing very intense purification and tests during the upcoming years. And everybody will have to select very soon. Nobody will be left in the middle. Everything will be polarized. Those who select the dark side, this will be like heavy alcoholics, depressed people, people who hate themselves, greedy, senseless, ruthless, rude people. They will not have to do any special endeavor. For them, the path will be paved. They will be directed all the time by the TV and the current, so there will be no doubt for them in which direction to go. The very famous and definitely confirmed prophet Vanga many decades ago said many times that this process of the new age will be starting from Russia, definitely. She also confirmed many times that Jesus will be returning and you will see him. Never doubt that for a second, it is for sure. But interestingly enough, he won't be Christian when he comes. But instead of that, she said, he will show the people the real, most ancient spiritual teaching of the world. And she was saying that it will be called in those times, those future times, the White Brotherhood. So, what I found interesting is that in this article with knowledge from Paramonov, this Russian article, people also say that what we now call spirituality, will turn into reviving the most ancient and actually internal teaching of the Dharma of all beings, and its name will be the White Brotherhood, the same name. Slava Sevrukova, she gave even more detail of how the social structures will be changing during the end times. It will start from Russia. First, the ex-Soviet Union republics will unite again, and or to be more precise, their people. I don't know how it will look on government level because it will not come from the current Russian Federation government, so it will be different. But there will be such a tendency, first of all, the ex-USSR republics, and then all the ex-communist countries. They will come where they always belonged to Tartaria. This is not something new, just the old relations between the tribes as they were originally will be revived. Paramonov described the very same sequence of events, and he also added that all the tribes on earth, they have like a spirit who is like a tribal leader eternally of the souls who usually take births in these tribes, because it is not that all souls jump between different races and nations all the time in their reincarnations. Usually they tend to stick to a single group. So all these leaders took earthly incarnation at this moment to be able to somehow guide or do something for their nations, although they were fully aware that if they want to take a human birth in these conditions, they will have their memory erased by the artificial intelligence grid. But even though they took a birth, by making arrangements that at least towards the very end times they will have their memory recovered at least to some extent to be able to do something for their people. In the Vedic holy books with descriptions of the life of Lord Kalki, who is most likely actually Jesus Christ, they also specify that all the important souls of the universe will be taking incarnations as well, because this is the last night of the Svarog. The events which will be unfolding will be unique and unusual. So there are a few more details in this article which I mentioned, which seems to be with knowledge from Paramonov, that at the very end, when this Jesus, or as they call them, these Hyperborean aces, which have returned and have taken births as ordinary so-called people, at the very end of the end times, they will reveal themselves and the full world will understand who were they actually, and then they will openly free Kiev, and that will be the end, the real end of the Ukraine war, because this is the region of Asgard, the real navel of the earth, because the celestial Asgard is reflected over there. All the other holy places of the aces will be also cleaned, because now they on purpose made them radioactive zones. All this will be cleaned and restored in its original beauty. Other prophecies from this article, which I mentioned for the near future, are that Syria is gonna fall down because on esoteric level, that is the center of this ancient cult of the inhumane ISIS. And Armenia will be shaken as well because that's where they made their new headquarters recently. The mummy of Lenin will be taken out of the ziggurat on the Red Square. The remains of Stalin and Putin will be finally cremated. This thing with the doubles of the Putin, actually many people in Russia already figured it out because they changed the doubles few times, and then all of a sudden the Putin looks completely different. And if one sees like the comparison photos, the shape of the ears, the structure of the hands, the bones, it's really a different person. Otrok Vyacheslav also prophesied decades ago about the end of these corrupt so-called kings. As they say in Kalki Purana, criminals dressed like kings. Exactly, that's what they are. So the end, at least in Russia, I'm sure in the other countries it will be very similar. So the way it will happen in Russia, according to Vyacheslav, is that one fine day, absolutely out of the blue, they will expose all their crimes in detail on the prime Russian TV channel in prime time. And the arrests will begin immediately after that. Of course, many people will try to run that very same night, but there will be no place to hide when the judgment day comes. All places are within God, all that is. As far as the timing, Omnislava Sivrukova gave some years. She said after 2022-25. And I think that this is a very reasonable estimate, considering that just now the final warnings have been mailed to these organizations and people. So what I gather from combining all the prophecies, this episode, the biblical end times, which is about to happen very soon, will be like the most dramatic from all the transition events. But there could be a few minor purges even after that. And in general, according to Set, it will be only after year 2075 when the earth will look like what most people now call paradise. Also, there will be lots of destruction to be cleaned up. All this pollution of plastics, the wildlife needs to restore itself. So one of the next videos in this series will be about the timings of the end time events. And then the next one would be about the actual events from a planetary perspective, not just the Slavic world. And the same events will be perceived by different people in a completely different manner. For example, those on a lower phase of understanding, they will remain in this illusion until they die, that these are simply political events, just the usual skirmishes between nations fighting for resources, as the TV has been assuring them every single day of their life. Others who have chosen the path of light, they would be much more aware that this is actually a full-scale war between the dark and the light forces, and their participation is an exam for which they have been preparing themselves for many lifetimes. Some people will take their exams few years, couple of years before the others. It's not that their purification will be easier, it is just timed a little bit differently so that they can help the other people through the end years. And that group, they will see much more than the others. They will be able to see the aces and the incarnated beasts, devils, antichrist, and immediately recognize them for who they are without the mask. If we keep following the biblical end time scenario, which we are doing until now, I don't know if it will be so until the end, but if it is, this type of people who woke up before the others, they will be danger number one for the dying parasitic monster and will be hunted down as a wild game. But this will not disturb them because they have already reached the level where they understand that the worst that could happen is that their body could be harmed. Since their essence is already firmly established in the benevolent patterns of the celestial Asgard, they will have no real panic because they will always internally see that as long as they are firmly fixed in the path of light, their essence will be always safe, no matter what happens to the body.